There we are. Now we're live.
Yep.
Here we
Now we're live.
here we are.
Well, I don't think anybody here needs an introduction. Ed, Mitchell, Greg. Anybody? Greg, I heard you just got back from a talk.
In Arkansas. I was in Rogers, Arkansas this last weekend. That was a lot of fun. Small club, good people, well run, organized. Went to a couple fish, both fish rooms, and went into fish stores. I got into a conversation with a guy who raises angelfish, and he had a mutation blue pinoy with with a finnage like this. And I said, "Oh my God, is the line like that?" And he said, "No, it's just that one fish, and they're trying to cross it and trying to see what they can come up with." But I'd be happy to send that picture to you if you'd like to see it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So otherwise, it was kind of cool. I've been pretty busy this fall actually. I was in Atlanta and I was in San Francisco and Sacramento all in the last month, and but now things are quiet until after the first of the year.
Yeah, you said you wanted to wait until everything had slowed down before we had you on. So
Yeah.
glad we got a chance to have you on.
Yeah, man. When we first started talking, I was really busy, and it was like,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now, Ed, are you doing talks around? Are you starting to do that stuff?
Who, me?
Yeah, Ed.
I've got a couple coming up in the near future. What I'm finding, I enjoy doing more of the virtuals. They work out better for me because it's hard for me to get away with everything here.
Sure.
So I'm doing a lot of Zoom meetings and things like that. I'm getting more and more people asking me to talk at their club about the CARES program. So, it's just you've been to my fish room. It's a lot of work, so it's hard for me to get away. So I've been doing a lot of Zooms and things like that, and that seems to be working out.
Right.
So, and YouTube got me to the point where I'm comfortable talking again because I had when you were here with me, I said I used to speak in front of people all the time, and then I had a bad situation happen, and I just kind of drew back, and I'm kind of coming out of my shell again. Having a lot of fun with it.
Well, the hobby needs
We've
it,
had
man.
him on here. And we've had Ed on here a couple times now. We've had Mitchell up.
Right, this is
Always been very knowledgeable, very educating.
I'm feeling pretty privileged here because I've met 4 out of the 5 of us up here. Because I've met myself. The only one I haven't met is Ed.
Well, trust me, I was hoping that you guys would stop after the clash, but it's like a 4-hour drive from the clash from my place. I wasn't expecting that, but we'll make it happen.
Yeah.
And ALA is going to be in Kentucky this year coming up, so you'll see me then.
And you'll see me there too.
Yep,
Yeah.
good.
I'll be there too. I was looking at the schedule. Does it look like they're not actually going to do the ACA's auction? They're just going to do the swap meet? I know the ALA is going to have the rare goodie at auction, but it looks like the schedule is now saying that the ACA is not going to do their big auction.
I would have to look. At that. I haven't talked to Tim lately, but I know they put some of it up. Hopefully that will change because that's a big draw.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the last I looked at the schedule, they were effectively replacing it with a really long swap meet
Mhm.
on the Sunday. So
Hmm.
that's cool, but the ACA is like known for its big auctions.
Yeah.
So
Well, I know there was a lot of discussion about the pluses and minuses of putting the clubs together. I spoke in Tampa when it was all three, the Killifish, the Beta, the AKA, the IBC, and the ALA. And I think most people agreed that was rough. So I know that the IBC this year has insisted on doing their own show. So they're not going to combine with anybody else. And I understand that the ACA was not crazy about putting it together, but I guess they're doing it again this year. So I'm real curious to see how that goes.
the
I
AK,
think
the AKA already scheduled theirs in St. Louis at a different time.
Yeah.
So
The IBC?
The
No,
killifish.
Oh,
I think-
killifish. Oh,
I
okay.
think I thought that the betas are going with the ACA and ALA this
Yeah,
time.
Oh, they are.
I know that killifish did split off.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that's what. Maybe I'm confused. Maybe it was a killifish I was thinking of. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, one other thing people need to realize, it's expensive to put on these events. And of a lot of the clubs, no disrespect to any of the clubs, but some of the clubs are struggling to have members now. So, this is what they're doing to stay alive. So hopefully, we all have to support each other. So I just think from a standpoint financially, most clubs, if they tried to do something on their own, may not be able to do something at that level. But I think one of the things that a lot of people got upset about was there's a couple different events they wanted to see and they're overlapping.
Hmm.
And I think that's where a lot of the problem comes in. But that's one of the downfalls when you have a couple different organizations. But I personally think it's kind of necessary to put on the events now by merging that way. It's just the nature of the beast, so to speak, in the hobby today.
Yeah, it's we commented in Tampa that the number of people at the dinner for all three clubs was about the same number as what it used to be for the ALA alone.
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots. You're having issues of restrictions on space, limits on space, and limits on time. So yeah, I think this is probably a period of transition, and we'll see how it ends.
Beto wanted to, Greg Beto wanted to know if the Senadonis you work with got reclassified.
I heard that someone wrote me and told me that they have determined that they are the same genetically after all, but they're so different in appearance that I don't know which name is going to be gotten rid of. I assume the Lucipinus name is the one that's going to get dropped. But I'd heard that, but I had a friend who was telling me about this, a customer told me about this, and I asked him to send the paper to me, and I haven't got it yet. But I guess that's in the air. Yeah. But I still wouldn't cross the Lucipinus with the Petricola. They're so different. The Petricola is so much larger, the spots are different, et cetera, et cetera. So it may be geographic differences that we're talking about.
Maybe.
They're both from Tanganyika, so Lake Tanganyika. But yeah, I got told that too, and that was quite a surprise because I've always been a big fighter for people who wanted to lump them together, and so who knows? I haven't seen the paper yet. Anybody else know anything about that?
I heard something briefly about it a few months
That's
back.
first I'd heard of it.
Yeah.
I've heard it, but I haven't seen the paper either.
Yeah. But man, when I was in the ALA and we were going to these shows where a zillion species would be there every year, it's like every year there'd be changes in taxonomy. I mean, the discussions about the splitters versus the lumpers and all that kind of stuff, and fish would change names and move between genus all the time. I mean, I remember when the Limia used to be Pasilia, then they became Limia, and the Melanesia was Pasilia, and then it became Melanesia, and so that kind of stuff. So I guess it's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, that's like with the crocodons, that they're reclassifying them. Respectfully, I'm still on the fence with that. Someone's going to have to send me a little bit more information.
Yeah, I still have a problem with it.
Yeah,
Which are they going to make?
So they're taking. Correct me if I'm wrong, Curtis. They're taking Audax altabaso, and now instead of calling it Audax, they're calling it lateralis, which I find that interesting. When lateralis is at the bottom of the Altitos.
It's like they got it backwards.
So what happened? How did that happen? Because then that would have to tell me at some time lateralis was at the top, and I could see something going from the top and going to the bottom. But fish don't fly. So how that's the thing I'm concerned with. I'm not negating it. I'm just not fully convinced with it because there's such a break in the locale and a barrier. So how does that happen?
Who knows which name they choose? I remember I was at the LA convention when they first announced that the Audax and the Lateralis were found to be genetically identical. And of course, everybody's jaw dropped, that the silver prince, that the black prince and the bright red Lateralis, the lost barrels, were the same genetically. I mean, that's still difficult to swallow. And it's a case where Do you drop one of the names or keep them the way they are, or get an asterisk next to one of the names? Or...
Yeah, well, when I first heard this, the first thing I thought of was the Eisenhower complex.
Right.
And is it something like that over time, through location, things develop a little differently? So maybe that's something that happened with Audax and Laterellus. But again, I'm not discrediting research, but I'm still not fully convinced.
Right. Well, it's interesting because when I was in the hobby, the convention was the place that all this stuff got revealed and got discussed, and we don't have central things like that anymore. Yeah. I deal with people all the time writing me saying they're looking for, can I get Xenotoka ice knife from you? And it's like, okay, which population do you want?
Yeah, exactly.
So there's still a couple of really big clubs that are doing really good work. Minneapolis, Seattle, Raleigh. And I guess if you're going to get that kind of information, that's where it would come from. Are you guys still there? You look like you're frozen.
Yep, we're here.
Cool. Okay. Alrighty. I just lost Mike there on my screen.
Yeah, he kind of bounces off and on because he's got a cat that likes to walk in front of his camera and other hijinks down there.
Gotcha.
So is that why? That's why.
Yeah.
Yep.
The cat likes to show its anatomy to the camera every once in a while.
Yeah, she's kind of a pain in the butt.
Now I know, and every time that blinks off, I'm going to laugh.
Yep.
So
but no, like I was telling. Go ahead.
No.
Like I was saying earlier, I was telling these guys, I emailed you on the green dragons.
Okay.
What you look for when you're breeding them, what to cull, what not to cull, and that's what I've been doing. That way, I can try and continue on with your line the way you're intending them to be. I'm not just taking, they're Greg's line of green dragons here,
Right.
Even though if they're not green or they don't meet what you look for.
Right. Well, I tried to release consistent individuals out to the hobby. Customers could do whatever they wanted to do with them, but you didn't want to just take all the calls, the very worst fish, call them green dragons, charge a fortune for them, and ship them out to the hobby. And there seemed to be a lot of that going on.
Yep.
There is.
There is.
So as long as you make an effort to keep them green and keep the finish looking good, I can't ask for anything more than that. That's part of the reason I got.
That's why when I got them from Curtis.
Okay.
And I wanted to email, and I was talking to him about them, and he said, "Well, why don't you just email Greg to see exactly what he looks for?" So that's why I emailed you about them. What do you look for? That way, I can kind of carry on with what you're doing. And then we got some of the refrigerator white ones, which so far they're doing well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How old are they now, Mike?
What, about 7 months?
6 or 7 months. Yeah, mine are about 4 inches now.
Snow white ones?
Yeah.
Yes.
Man,
I don't get them. Here's another deal is I don't get them. My water's hard. I pick mine up from you at your house, right? I take them home. I get long fins, short fins, never get a white one. I take 4 or 6 of the prime long fin green dragons with the right colors, everything to Mike. And then a month later, he tells me, "Hey, I got white ones." Like,
but Curtis, did you get regular albinos even though you didn't get white ones?
No,
I got white ones, albinos, long fins, and short fins.
Yep.
All the white ones and the albinos are all long fin.
Oh, cool. Okay.
The only thing I've ever got is long fins with the right colors and the stripes on the tails, and I've gotten short fins. I've never got anything else. No albinos, no whites, no nothing.
Wow.
And the only thing I can think about is water quality, water hardness.
Yeah. There's so much we don't know, man. There's so much we don't know. I was in conversations for over a year with a university back east that had a program where they were researching for different food companies, foods for albino pet animals. So they, what do albino morphs need that they're not getting in the food that other animals, don't need. So they found out I was, raising these albino plecos. So we kept in close touch. They wanted to find out what I was feeding and all this. And they had me boosting the amount of protein that the whites got, claiming that they need more protein. And of course, there was a lot to talk about that endocrine wall that they reach, when they hit sexual maturity or when they started, that, is what kills them. But I can't say that I've had, much luck from their information, having them live much of a longer life. I mean, it just comes down that they're more fragile. So you just clean water is what it's all about, and making sure they're fed regularly.
I just been feeding green beans and cichlid pellets.
Yep.
Like you recommended.
Yep. So, Mike, in the information I sent back to you, were you happy with that information I sent you? I mean.
Oh, yes, very.
Okay. No more.
Very good. Plenty of information that I needed. And I figure if I needed any more, I'd just email you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I've just picked up more tanks for us yesterday, so we're going to continue on.
Wow. No, man, if you guys keep those going, I sent a bunch of them to a friend of mine on the East Coast, and we want to keep him secret until he's ready to sell, simply because as soon as he mentions that he's got them, if his emails are anything like mine, he just doesn't want to be inundated at a time when he doesn't have fish yet. So we're hoping he'll have fish by the spring. But he's had some setbacks. We were supposed to have released fish this spring, and he didn't make it. So we're hoping that he's going to make it next spring. But if you guys can get him going and get numbers up, oh my God, there's nobody else out there doing it. So,
but like we were just saying, distributing green dragons that actually are specifically green dragons, not just coming from a green dragon.
Right.
That seems to be one of the biggest problems. But I see that with just about any type of ornamental aquarium strain. I even see it with critically endangered fish. It's an ongoing problem in our hobby. Is someone like Greg spends the last 15 years of working on bettering a bloodline to his specifications, and then, with all due respect to people out there, they're just breeding and breeding. So you have to look at it this way, This gentleman here sharing the screen with us will go out of his way to help you, and he's worked very hard for these bloodlines. And just my opinion, it's a shame to see people just willy-nilly and arbitrarily breeding them. That kills all that work he's done for 15 years. So you have to look at it that way.
One of the things you mentioned, Ed, it's important there, is that for people to understand, whenever you see a new morph in the store that everybody's excited about, by definition, it can't be further along than its second or third generation. If it's not to its 11th generation or past, it's not going to breed consistently for you.
Correct.
So if you breed it, you've got to call it for the traits that you bought it for. Otherwise, the line will deteriorate back to its normal form.
And then we've got another question here, Greg.
Yeah.
It says, I have the trout gadeids that I were told were your line, and they're very pretty, but the latest generations are starting to have back issues. Do I need to cull more often?
I've not seen any back issues with them. I've never had that here. The line's pretty stable in that respect. The problem that we've had is we've had a couple of sellers that are selling them to the hobby, claiming that they're my fish. And usually they came from me at some point. They went to somebody else who then sells them to them. But then they're keeping them in the wrong conditions, and then people are buying them and they're not breeding. If you're getting back issues like that, I would look at the amount of vegetable food that you're feeding. If you're not feeding at least a good half of your dry foods being vegetable, then you want to get up to that point. That's going to bring out your overall health and your color. And I've actually started feeding the Fursidans green beans.
Green beans. I do too.
I was shocked to find out that they clean out a tank of green beans just as like the plecos do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Number one issue with goodies is people feeding them too much protein because they're told to feed them. Yeah. Cracodons, you can get away with that, but not with Fursidans. And I found that out something similar with all of my Scyphias. people feed too much protein to Scyphias. The key to Scyphias is feeding them a lot of plant-based material. And what I've started putting into my diet for all of them is nori. I have no issues with bloat. I'm getting no genetic defects, and their colors are so much better. So that I agree. She may just need to put some more vegetable matter in. But by all means, if you're getting crooked spines, Greg's more than welcome to jump in here at any given time. When I get a genetic defect, I immediately remove those defected, and over time, the line will homogenize itself and breed itself out. It may take a few generations. I had a line, so I had a line of Scyphia francese that I got from someone. So the first thing I do when I get a new bloodline, let's say if I get my line of Audax I've had for 5 years and they're doing very well. But let's say I wanted to get another line from someone. I don't immediately integrate those fish. That new bloodline of fish, I'm going to watch them produce for about a year to make sure that there's no genetic defects, because once you've started working with a fish over time, you've put a lot of work into that, working on any types of genetic defects or anything. So if you're putting another fish in immediately, you take the risk of polluting that line. So what I did with the Scyphia, I just started root culling. And when I mean culling, I was culling 75% of them for a while. I've now got the line back to where it needs to be. The fish are much larger, they're producing more, and I'm getting no genetic defects at all. So I just by culling. And I learned that from this gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've been talking a lot so far with this, but if you guys will indulge me here for a moment, there's a topic I cover in my talks that deals with this specific issue in the hobby. And it's like, let's say you've got a fish that everybody wants. It's fairly rare, and you spend a little bit of money for it. So you buy it, you bring it home, you take great care of it. It has young. You're really excited about this. So you put them on aquabid, or somehow you sell off some of the fry that you have so that you can pass on the line to others and get your investment back. And all's good, and the person who got them from you is just as excited. So that person goes ahead, raises them up, gives them great care, puts them in good conditions and all that. They breed for him. He goes through the exact same process, and he sells off a couple pair of his fish so that they get more distributed, more people take it on. Then this continues and it continues. Eventually, you have fish in the hobby, which has happened with a number of species recently. They've never been in the same water qualities for more than a generation, and it weakens the fish generation to generation to generation. And people say, oh, that fish is genetically going bad, or it's got genetic problems. It doesn't. It just needs to live in the same water long enough to adapt so that it can produce and live healthfully. You keep changing the water qualities like this. Even under the best of circumstances, when I ship a fish out to somebody and they put them in their tank, the lifespan of the fish that I ship is going to be shortened, because the majority of their life was spent in a different water quality. So your goal when you get new fish is to breed them and then raise up those young. And usually I find that it takes to the third generation before they start to adapt to your water. And I have pictures in my talk of fish when I received them, how great they looked, fish, how they looked after about a year or 6 months, and then how they looked after 3 or 4 generations. They're twice the size, the color is better, they're much more robust because they have adapted to the water. And few people keep fish long enough to where they get to that point. And so, that's a big issue. When you get fish from somebody else, you really don't know what the progeny of what the provenance of that fish is. It could have just recently been crossed with somebody else. So if you get bent spines or you get missing fins because of what you see as inbred problems, that's entirely possible for at least 3 to 4 generations when you don't know what happened with the fish that you're breeding.
Mm-hmm.
So
anyway,
that's my big spiel,
I kind of take the guppy breeding approach to a lot of this.
Mm-hmm.
By having multiple tanks.
Mm-hmm.
Because, to do a guppy, you got to have, I don't know what they say, 9 tanks, say. Well, okay. I start with like the trouts that I got from you, and I bred them, and then I took some of those fry, put them in another tank, let them grow up. While these are still dropping fry, I started another tank.
Sure.
And then I continually crossbreed them back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So it's never the same ones just over and over and over again. And then eventually I'll pull the best ones out of here, the best ones out of here, the best ones out of here, and then I start a different tank. And
your genetics will be limited enough that you'll get rid of the inbreeding flaws that you will see. You won't see the spine injuries and the back problems and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. And my wife will walk in and she'll say, "Why is this whole row they're all the same. What are you doing? It's
Yeah.
like, there's a method. There's a method here. I'm not completely crazy.
Because most of my fish have been here since 2002. The latest fish I got of most of the fish I still have today got here in 2004. So, that's great because the fish they're totally homogenous, and people say, well, don't you need to cross out to make them healthy? And I'm like, have you ever walked in a pet store and seen a row of 90-degree tanks all full of half moon platies that are identical? Would you say that they're not healthy? That's exactly what we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
That's like I was recently talking with a gentleman that's a researcher, very nice guy, and we were talking about this. And I said to him, well, I understand where people are worried about limited genetic bloodline. But like prime example, the crocodons I work with, there were only so many that came into the United States. Mm-hmm. So do people really think there's enough genetic bloodline there? It's not. And some people talk about homogenization of a bloodline as a bad thing. There can be a few issues health-wise, but for the most part, if you're culling them properly and watching for genetic defect, in my opinion, especially with some of the lines I've worked, I've made them stronger. I have some audax that my audax are producing every 3 months like clockwork. Mm-hmm. I have to separate them because I don't want my females being worn out. But like people, you have to think like, a lot of the fish that I work with were not commercially shipped to the country. They were brought back by field researchers. There's a limited number of them. So to really think, like you're in New York and you're going to get fish from California and think they're a totally different bloodline, highly unlikely. They're probably all related, but there's enough variance within those fish that it works. But the problem is if we're not culling properly and if we're not maintaining them to the best of their health and ability and calling out the imperfections in the weakened fish, over time we're diminishing the fish. To me, homogenization is a good thing. But there's a lot of people that think, but like, so what are you going to do? Because I tell people all the time, the audax, a lot of people aren't breeding audax now, and it's more a really good chance that most of them they're related. So, bringing in a new bloodline, maybe new into your room, but not really a bloodline because more than likely they all come from the original fish brought back. Dr. Paul Loisel with Panchax saccharanii, which is a critically endangered killifish that he discovered. He only brought back less than 20 of them, and then they were gone in the wild. So every fish that's in the United States comes from those 20 fish. Over time, it's going to be a genetic bottleneck, but by culling and working with them, you can overcome that. It's just paying attention to what you're producing. So I had a really good conversation with someone a few weeks ago with that. And the interesting thing I asked was, so what are the findings from what people are saying is you shouldn't let fish homogenize? He looked at me, grinned, and said, we don't know. Some of us have been breeding. This gentleman here has been breeding his lines for many years. His process seems to be working for him. And like I said, with the number of fish coming in, a lot of these fish were brought in by researchers. They're not being brought in by commercial imports. So to sit back and think that these bloodlines are vast is just doesn't make sense. So you have the homogenization to me.
Well, it's interesting because I had a talk with Mike Helwig about this very thing. Mm-hmm. I said, which populations were used to start the Hellerai in the hobby? And he said these collectors from the different companies would just go and pick up fish wherever they found them, and nobody took any collection data, mm-hmm. and they could have come from anywhere. Right. And so the commercial Hellerai that you get in the pet store, even prior to when they were crossed with platies to give all the colors and stuff we have, were not specific to their population, to their geographic location. And, you can't determine, what those fish were. So there was an attitude for a long time that not to keep these things separate, not to follow up. And it's really becoming important. People are realizing now how important that is. I don't know how you were, Ed, but I was terrible when I first started keeping some of these libraries. I had no idea why you separated them by population like that, and now I understand.
Well, I was fortunate enough to meet you and correspond with you for the last 7 years when I first started working with these critically endangered fish. That's why I tell people, find a mentor. And I was fortunate enough to have this gentleman as
Thank
mine.
you.
Yeah, I've learned a lot, but I'm learning something new every day. And that's the thing that, it is, as hobbyists, we have to be open to learning new things all the time. And
Sure.
sometimes admitting when maybe this doesn't work and we need to try something new. But yeah.
Well, this may or may not work for you. Curtis is probably aware of this because I was an IFGA and bred guppies for about 5 years. And the first thing you did when you got a new pair of guppies was you bred them, and then you took half the spawn and started a second line, and they'd be your B line.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kept the A line and the B line separate, and then would cross them back every 5 to 7 generations to try to build out your genetic diversity. So like Jim Alderson down in LA had, A and B lines of all of his guppy lines. And they got to a point over time that people could tell the difference between them, Oh, the A line has a darker tail than the B line does. I mean, they diverged on their own after a while, but he insisted that was how he kept his genetic diversity up.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing that with some of my swordtails because they breed so heavily and all of that when I had swordtails, and that worked out real well.
I still kick myself the very first time I was in your room. You had swordtails and all of this stuff that you don't have anymore.
I know.
And I'm thinking, man, I should have got the credit card out and just got in some real trouble right there.
I had 3 or 4 hobbyists that bought everything I had. They said, just send me 2 pairs of everything you've got. And the first couple times it happened, I was like, oh my God, is this guy trying to start a business to compete against me, or what the deal is, And one of them was a businessman, and people said, oh man, don't sell to him. He's got hundreds of tags. He'll put you out of business in no time. But I said, you can't do that to people, So I went ahead and I sent the fish to everybody, and the person that bought all the fish from me, I guess there's no harm in mentioning it. It was like 15 years ago, but was Steve Rybicki out at Angels Plus, and then he developed the gold brick swordtail, red brick swordtail, trying to duplicate the fish from the 60s that's disappeared.
Yeah.
And he used my Nezzies in that mix. So I came to find out that my Nezahoy coyotals were part of his breeding project for that fish. And then there's another guy on the East Coast. I don't remember his name anymore, but he built a fish room very similar to what I had set up, and they made sure he owned all of my fish. And so I got to meet him on Zoom one day, and we talked and all that, but I haven't heard from him since. But, it's getting hard now. I mean, my eye, man, Ed, if you can get a hold of my eye.
I haven't been able to find my eye in 2 years. I
had so many thousands of them. Contact the Anaheim Club. There's a guy in the Anaheim Club that has a ton of them. Okay. And he keeps them really well. He does a really good job with them. I couldn't tell what his name is offhand. We can talk more by email. I can tell you what I remember.
Keep that one private.
Yeah, in private. But the Mai or the Rio Otapa Hillary, I've searched. I did finally find the Rio Otapas for 2 people, but they're impossible to find anywhere. And again, that's another one. I used to feed hundreds of those fry to other fish in the fish room here because they were so prolific.
Now, Mike from Fish Tank Barn said he bought my eye at Keystone Clash.
Oh, really? Oh, good. Okay. They're out there. They are out there.
Hold on to them, Mike. Hold on to them.
Yeah.
That's a diminishing species within the hobby, especially in my area. Hold on to that, buddy. Yeah. I can't find them anywhere. So, and it's not that they're that difficult to breed. I think one of the things which we've talked about before, a lot of people start working with these fish, and they breed them a couple times and then they move on to something new. And you can't do that with a lot of these fish.
Right.
You have to maintain them. So.
Well, and the thing about the Mai that's so super cool is they don't behave like other swordtails. They don't have a hierarchy. You don't have dominant males. They're comfortable living in tight conditions and tight quarters. I used to have about 30 of them in a 40-gallon breeder. They were huge. They were 5-inch fish, but it had a backdrop of Java moss and Java fern back there. And when a stranger walked in the room, they'd all hide, and you couldn't tell there was a fish in the tank.
Yeah,
They were a lot shyer. Their behavior was just totally different than any other type of swordtail, which made them really interesting for me. But yeah, people don't even notice that. They get rid of them before they figure all that stuff out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what's cool about maintaining these lines and holding on to them. I was looking at video and pictures of some of my fish from 7 years ago and where they are today.
Mm-hmm.
And you just see that progression. And you don't notice it when you're around them every day. But when you start seeing pictures and videos, it really brings things into perspective. My Doadroi, which were some of the very first fish I got from you 7 years ago. I mean, the
Which
difference.
fish?
Doadroi.
The what?
Xenotoka Doadroi.
Oh, yes. I call them Doadroi. Okay.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. No, you're pronouncing it right. I just figured it's too big a pain in the ass, so I just say Doadroi.
That's why I do it too. It's easier to say it that way.
Imagine, Greg, me, a pain in the ass, never.
Oh,
Never.
no, not you, but
You got some of the fish that Mitchell's got that they're like, a mile long pronunciation.
Yeah.
well, it took me forever to figure out that it was Doadroi. I had a Spanish-speaking friend explain that to me, and I'd gotten so used to pronouncing it Doadroi, I just have always, anyway.
We know what everyone means. But the difference in mine now, and it's what you said, is as they adjust to your water parameters over a few generations, you'll start to see a few things that are a little different. So.
Oh man, when I first got those Doadroi, I got them because there was that picture that was released in the Gadiad breeding working group, and also with the ALA, that really highly pretty sparkly red and blue photo. And everybody wanted it, so I contacted a friend and I said, "Do you have them?" He goes, "Yeah, I got them." And I said, "Well, man, do they look like that?" And he said, "They don't look anything like that. They look like crap." And I said, "Really?" I said, "I want a couple pairs of them." And he said, "Sure, you're welcome to them," because we'll never sell any of them. So I brought them home, and they did. They looked like crap. So I took pictures of them, and I stuck them in a tank, and I just put them in that tank and ignored them. And I actually did send out a few pair, and in my entire time of Select Aquatics was the only time I had somebody send a fish back to me. Somebody actually sent them back to me because it would be better for the fish. I don't want it. It's ugly. It's not. It's got anyway. So I just stuck it in this tank and forgot about it. And so then 2 years later, I thought, well, I'm either got to get rid of these or I've got to do something with them. I took them out and I put them in a photo tank, and they look like they do today. And I was like, oh my God! And what it was is the guy who was keeping them was feeding them expired food given to him by a friend who owned a pet shop. When the food got too bad, he'd give it to him, and that's what he fed the fish. His water changes were minimal. The tanks were pretty filthy that they were kept. He had over 200 tanks, but most of them were a mess. And that's the guy who I got them from. So when they got into good water changes and good food and care, that's why they look the way they do today. And I've got pictures of that those original ones, and it's really sad. But they were muddy colored, of all things. But yeah. But that's what happens. I mean, people say, "Oh, you must selectively bred them like crazy." I didn't at all. If you keep them well and you keep them good, you're going to get better color and appearance 99% of the time anyway.
Yep.
So Mitchell, you're being quiet, man.
He's like, I'm going to let these two talk. They never shut up.
What you up to recently?
I think you're muted, Mitchell.
Other button.
Can you hear me now?
Now, there we go.
Yeah. So
He's
unlike
been talking
you
all this
guys,
time, we just haven't heard him.
so unlike you guys who are like working long term with strains of live bears and whatever, I am more into learning how to breed something that no one really knows how to breed. So that's the thing that I've been doing a lot of lately. So unless anyone knows any different, I have the world first breeding of Zaccoplatypus. It's a hill trout from like the China area. So I've got that going. I'm doing other things, like I'm getting some of the odd shiners. So like you probably can't see it very well, but in this tank behind me there are fiery black shiners that have started breeding for me. So I'm working through a few of those different kinds of things, trying to figure out how to breed them and how to make it easier to breed them when I do figure out how to breed them, so I can then pass that on to people. So
I was just talking about your Zaccoplatypus last weekend in Arkansas with somebody, talking about it. And a couple of weeks ago, I believe I was in San Francisco, I had a long conversation with someone about your breeding the bitterlings. And
I am attempting to.
And he was interested in your progress with the 3D printed oyster mussel shell.
That is interesting.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have the one I got available as my first bitterling to try is one that doesn't have any real good information about what mussel they prefer. So I haven't actually cracked the code with them yet. But in case you guys are others are not aware, bitterlings they breed by actually the females have a really unusual shaped ovipositor that's like very extended, and what they do is they actually drop it down into the folds in a opened up mussel or clam and inject their eggs down into a mussel, and they stick inside the mussel, and then the mussel's action of bringing water in and out is actually keeping them oxygenated and aerated. And they'll actually use the mussel as a host to actually hatch the eggs. So different bitterling species prefer different mussels or clams. And I haven't yet cracked the code for the one that I have. But so I've been trying different shapes of fake mussels for them. But
working he's been 3D printing.
Yes, I'm using a 3D printer to actually create clusters of different looking mussels and clams. And then within the mussel or clam, whatever, I actually use a little bit of a silicone sheet, a flexible silicone sheet to simulate the mantle so it's flexible, and hook that up to an air-driven, a lot like the hang-on breeder sort of things, where it actually pulls the water through the simulated mussels out a stand pipe that goes up into a collector. So haven't yet cracked the code for the particular bitterling that I'm working on now, but that is the plan. Yeah, I do know that it can be done. I know of someone that has done it for a different species of bitterling. Just working through that.
How would you
really
find out
the hobby?
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Greg. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, how would you find out information on breeding them? What's out there?
Research papers. And unfortunately, it's the same thing I ran into with Zaccoplatypus. I've only actually found 2 research papers that even really attempt to describe anything of the breeding. And one of them, they actually just collected them in the wild. And the other one, they artificially inseminated them. Mm-hmm. But they actually still did give me the information about like their gestation time and like at what phase they actually hatch and things like that. So I got some information, but it's the same kind of thing. Like a lot of these sorts of things where there's no information, if you can find research papers, that's great. But some of it is like the way I worked out getting the appropriate size grain of sand for Zaccoplatypus, which is different because they seem to they spawn over sand in running water. And my theory was I was using too small of a grain of sand. So like tool filter sand and smaller was too compacted for them. So they were not getting their eggs down in it deep enough and it actually being caught in the sand, and they were able to eat them. So when I figured that, or when I guessed at that, I increased the size of the grain of sand. So now they actually are able to inject the eggs down into the sand, and I then suck up all the sand and they don't get them. But I did that by like watching videos of them in their natural habitat and saying, oh, that's what they're doing. Okay, let me try and figure out what that substrate looks like. So that's the kinds of things you end up having to do with things where people don't actually know how they breed.
Did you say you actually had some spawns?
Oh yeah, I have lots of. So funny thing is, at our next club meeting, I guess it's next month. I'm going to be bringing in F1 Zaccoplatypus, which is kind of cool. So
That is
they're
cool.
about 3/4 of an inch or so in size. I have a few different spawns of them, probably 80 or more of them.
Wow. Now you have some pretty serious people in your club. Do you have somebody else that's waiting on them that you think they can breed them as well?
Yeah, I have a few different people that are really interested in them, as well as a few different people around the U.S. that are interested in them too.
Cool. That's what it's all about. Yeah, Curtis. All right, man. They're a very cool fish. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but just a neat looking fish. I spent all my time videotaping. In his huge room, I spent all my time videotaping those guys when I was there.
Yeah. I know us. I think that we actually were on a stream here a while after you had came to my room, and we were talking about you had just come to my room, and I was saying that like Greg was talking about like maybe like if he ever does get around to like downsizing a little bit and picks up a different project, he might actually want these guys, because he was standing there in front of them for like 15 minutes just taking pictures. It's like, hey, so yeah, I can tell you how to breed them now.
Well, awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to be doing. I mean, my mind is excited at the prospect of doing something different.
Yep.
As I downsize. I mean, I think it's a normal fish keeper kind of thing. And so I used to breed super veil blacks, angelfish, before I went into all of this. You don't see them anymore, and you don't even see the super veils anymore. But supposedly they do exist, and there are breeders that have them. So I was told to join the TSA, the Angelfish Society forum. So I've been poking my nose around in there and trying to get things going, just to get an idea of who the world is of people that are raising these things, but they aren't showing up on Aquabid and they aren't selling and shipping.
Yeah, that's breaking into that is often hard.
Yeah,
because you just a lot of people like are doing really cool things and they're not talking about them, or they're not talking about them in a public enough place that people outside their area know about them.
I know a guy in Texas that breeds Ultim angels, and he ships them overseas to Europe, and he won't let people in his fish room anymore because he had someone dip his finger in one of his tanks once, and he said, "That's it." Yeah, I
can relate.
Huh?
I can relate.
Yeah, I begged and begged him. He wouldn't let me go see his fish room. So nobody sees my fish room. His son was a friend, and he was trying to get it happening, but it wasn't going to happen. So, yeah, I let people in, and they can. When Grant Eater was here recently, he just said, "Can I take some videos?" And I said, "Sure." I always say sure. And he walked around the room with his wife and their baby, and they took some videos, and they left. Never heard anything more about it. And then I had some people write me, and he just posted a video on my fish room, and it's getting all kinds of hits. And it's like, oh, cool, good for you. Yeah. So I wrote him and thanked him.
Yeah. The latest one I seen on. So
you seen that one?
Nick, I've seen it, and the one Nick did from Keep Fish Simple.
Mm-hmm, right.
The Australian.
Now, have you guys seen the one that I just posted about a week ago, 2 weeks ago? Yes,
the one where your trumpet solo.
Yep.
It's about time, my friend. It's about time you post again.
Yeah. I just set up a new automatic system for breeding the Odessas. That's much easier, and it just cranks them out by the zillions, and it's really great. I've done 4 batches on it now, and it's about ready to make a video about it. But it's a case of having 3 tanks set up, and one of them is a sump, and the water is constantly, switching between the 3. And so that's my next video. I'll probably breed them later this fall or spring.
Cool.
And I'll make the video then.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds like another trip for me to go to Denver.
Yeah, because I have one of Greg's male Odessas, and I need some females.
Ah. Well, I recently, because of the setup, just bred a ton of them, and part of the reason was I bred up all that I would sell, but then I bred up about another 1,000 using the top 4 males that I had and the top 6 or 8 females that I had, and the males, I had these males showing up. So not only was their black really striking and the red really striking, but they were a little higher bodied. They looked more like rams, like cichlid rams than like a barb. And they're just majestic, and it's just my jaw dropped. I said, "Oh my God!" So I grabbed those guys, and so now I've got all these young growing up, and so I plan to pick out like the absolute best 100 of those, and then probably sell off the rest of them to pet shops or whatever, and that I'm hoping will carry my line to the next notch up. And I'm also going through that with the Fursidans right now. I've got a good 20 tanks of Fursidans going, and so
I'm up to 8.
Are you really a Fursidans?
Yeah, 8 tanks.
Oh my God!
Yeah, and that one fish I showed you last year, the leucitic. Remember the Fursidans, the leucitic that I sent you? I said,
oh yes.
So what's interesting with that fish, I isolated it from all the others because I wanted to maintain and see what was going on with it. It has not grown at much, hardly at all. It looks like it's only maybe 6 months old, and it's over a year now.
That's normal. That's normal. Yeah, you get a big mutation change like that, and it's the first thing it shows is in size, but that's cool. It'll still breed.
Yeah, I've isolated him out. The line I'm working with right now, I'm just maintaining the one that I got from you, and that's kind of where I'm focusing with that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I really want to breed that guy. That's just my opinion on him.
Sure.
It's a male, and you would think it would have some yellow to it. No yellow.
It's just like a dishwasher kind of gray kind of color. Yeah.
Kind of an off-white. Yeah. But for me, I like the line with the good body structure and stuff like that. So. Right. Yeah, I held off. I separated him out. I wanted to see what he would look like, and I'm just really not that impressed with his size. Well,
if it were me, I would breed him because you may not see the advantages for another generation, maybe even 2.
True.
But if I get to a second generation, they still look like crap, I would get rid of them.
Yeah.
But you might end up getting some really nice bright orange ones in the next generation. But who's to say?
Mm-hmm.
Chances are you'll probably just get more ugly gray fish.
And
ugly gray ditch fish, yeah.
You can consume some tanks while you're doing that too.
Yeah.
Yep.
I had a leucistic knife live bear about a year ago. It's the only one I've ever seen came out just pure leucistic. I put him in another tank too and just watched him grow, and he got about half size.
Now you got him from me?
Yeah.
Okay, that line throws these leucistics, and they sometimes have silver eyes. Have you ever seen that?
I didn't see the
it's
silver eyes.
It's really strange looking. It's like eyes without a pupil, and they're almost always males. And I've tried to breed them, and I haven't gotten anywhere.
We're talking Cultratus.
Yeah, the Alfaro Cultratus. But I got to where I would pull them, and I haven't seen one in a couple of years now. But they used to throw a bunch of those. They were almost creepy looking. So
since I got them from you, I probably had hundreds of fish, and there was one out of all of that had that trait. Wow.
Yeah, you probably got them at the end. Well, and the Alfaros also had a habit for me for a while when I first got them, to where whenever I'd move them to new water qualities, they would breed either all female or all male for a couple generations. and it was all I could do to keep the line going to have enough males to, and they flipped with both sexes. Once it was all females and once it was all males. But now they've been 50-50 now for a good 10 years. But it's just the nature. I think they
now that you say that,
what's that?
Now that you say that, Curtis just brought me some of those knife live bears for a tank I've set up.
Mm-hmm.
And now that he says that, I'll probably wind up with some of those over here, being my water's different.
They're very cool. I really, they were really one of my best selling fish first couple of years, but now with shipping costing as much as it is, it's not a fish people want to spend the money to ship. So I'm down to I've got 155 full of them, and I may cut them out. I don't know yet.
Yeah, I'm still keeping 2 tanks of them. So
keep them going. Like I say, is sooner or later, I won't be here forever. And
that's what I was telling Mike. Is it's one of my calmest fish, and in a planted tank with in a nice green planted tank, it gets kind of I call it like a creamy butter color.
Yeah,
has that blue eye. And it'll just sit there and stare at you all day long, and it's just nice. It's a cool.
You stick your hand in the tank, and they all turn around and watch you.
Yeah,
it's very strange. Yeah,
I'll keep them around. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, the only issue with those guys is for a while I had a hard time breeding them because they will eat their fry, and I found a number of ways to breed them, well. But if you just try to, do them like guppies, you won't end up with much. They'll eat the fry. So I put them in a 20-gallon long. And then I put 2 box filters in the middle of the tank, and then I put plants all against from the box filters to the back of the tank, and then from the front of the tank, from the box filters to the front, I leave it open, and then that's the front of the tank, and that's where I feed them into. So when the adults, they stay in the front, and when they have young, they all go back to the plants. And then when I see that they've dropped their fry, I grab the adults, pull them out, let the fry grow up for a couple of weeks, and I can put in more gravid females. Yeah. But that's managed to save most of my fry without them getting bothered.
Yeah, I use a lot of moss like that where let the back get up 4 or 5 inches tall, and then keep the front real low. And
yeah, the only problem with the alfaros is they like to swim near the surface, so you got to kind of have floating stuff going on. Yeah. But yeah, man.
Well, Mike is setting up a display at his local library that is the Coltratus and the Limia tigers in there.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They should get along. And I don't think the alfaros will bother the tiger fry. They shouldn't.
Probably not.
And the tiger fry probably won't bother the alfaro fry.
They've already bred in that tank once.
Have they?
Yeah, the Limia have, yeah.
Should be a cool looking tank when it all grows in.
Well, I'll be holding on to those Limias for a while. I mean, I don't know of anybody else that's breeding them and selling them. But I knew Dominic really well, and I fought so hard to get it named after him. So, do you guys know the story about Dominic Isla? And
I know it, but I would like for you to tell everybody else
why it took 20 years to get it named after him.
What I understand, he was quite a character.
He was an irascible. He and I got along okay, but you just had to. When he starts throwing stuff at you, nasty things that he says sometimes, you just have to ignore it. Once he realizes you're on the game, you're okay. But I mean, he had stories going on, things happening where at one point, for instance, he and Ed Cray got into it in his house, and Dominic was pulling fish out of his tanks and throwing the fish at him, chasing him out of the house. So Ed says he was running out of the house with the door open with fish flying through his open door at him that Dominic was grabbing out of his tank and throwing at him. Real, just, not a pleasant character. And when we went to the first couple magazines, the first couple clearinghouses where you go to get a species named, there were people on the boards of these things. Like, everybody knows Dominic, and there was always somebody on one of the boards that either he owed money to, or just they were so pissed at it they would never consider naming it after him. So they would say, name it anything else, but we're not going to name it Dominic Islai. We're not going to name it Limia Islai. And it took us 4 times over 20 years to finally the last publication, possibly because when I go on my talks, I always say, is anybody here who knew Dominic Islai? And there used to be a time when hands would go up. But now when I did it in Arkansas, nobody raised their hands. And I said, okay, so it's telling me that the memories of him are long enough gone that probably has something to do with why they okayed it being named after him. But he was just, Oh my God! I mean, I could just tell stories about him and just strange stuff. One point, he wanted to move from Denver. He was fed up with Denver. He goes, until the roads are paved with gold, I'm never coming back. And he goes, I want you to have all my stuff. So he loaded up his truck and brought over all these tanks and all this crap. He goes, I don't know what happened to it. He goes, I don't care what you do to it. You can give it away at the fish club. You can sell it or whatever. I'm never coming back. I said, okay, Dominic. So I had my basement full of tanks and all of this crap. Well, most of it was old stuff. A lot of the tanks leaked. And I had the fish club had a meeting at our house. People took what they wanted, but I was still left with a lot of stuff. About 3-4 months passed. Dominic comes back. I had to come back. I want my stuff back. And I said, well, Dominic, man, you had told me to, sell or give away your stuff. He goes, that's okay. I understand. I said that. That's okay. I'll come by and I'll pick up what you've got. That's okay. So he comes by and he does. He picks up the stuff, takes it back. So I had a bunch of fish people over later that day, and we were just sitting around shooting the shit, and the phone rings, and it's Dominic. And you can hear him yelling across the room, you gave me tanks that leaked. I'm like, Dominic, I didn't touch your tanks the time they were sitting there, He was, and you gave me this and it's broken. You gave me this and it's broken. I'm like, Dominic, calm down, man. I didn't touch a thing, And that was just Dominic, his first, he wasn't happy with what he got. He called me to yell at me about it. I'm the guy who's been holding on to his stuff. But that's just how he was. And so then he moved all the stuff into an apartment building in Denver. And he died of a drug overdose, actually. And my number was in a Rolodex he had, and the city of Denver called me. And I went and met the coroner, and they dressed me up in a white outfit. And we went into his apartment, and I was the one who was supposed to take out his tanks and his fish and stuff. And I'd never been around, that smell and that kind of stuff before. He was in his apartment for 9 days before they discovered him.
Yeah, you never forget that.
Yeah. So he didn't have many fish left that were still, doing okay. And I took his tanks out and drained them down, all that kind of business. But I think that was in about 2000. I don't remember. It was a while ago. Yeah.
Hey, Greg, someone wrote out a question, and this would be a good one for you to answer. So Chris said, which parasites or bacteria syndromes remain the hardest to eradicate in live bear systems, and what layered interventions have proven durable? That's a good question.
Sure. Well, when people write me with problems all the time, it was kind of difficult for me because I, maintain my tanks really clean. I have all these automatic systems, and I really never see diseases. But it also taught me over time that diseases and parasites generally don't happen unless they're introduced. You're doing something incorrect, or you've got something going on. So when people write me about all these exotic things that based on symptoms they see in a disease book, and they think they've got these things, and I'm like, well, chances are you don't have a parasite. Chances are you're not. So the only medications I use here are salt. I use salt often because that's great for bacterial infections, and I use the levamisole for the camellanus worms and for the live bear disease. But I don't run across any other diseases. I had some freestanding tanks about 10 years ago. They got ick in them. I hadn't seen ick in years, and I just and so I have a couple of things around for treating ick. But those are the only medications I have and that I own. So usually if you think you've got a parasite situation going on, first of all, they can write me. But if it's the case the fish are getting thinner or whatever, use a medicinal dose of salt, which is 1 tablespoon per every 5 gallons. That will help boost their immune systems and suppress any pathogens you've got going on. And then if you have something that's specific that you can see that maybe you might need an antifungal for, that you might need an internal medication for. I think most people who assume they have internal parasites generally don't, because like I say, internal parasites are something you have to introduce. If you're feeding lots of live food you caught yourself or something, then you get into that. But generally, most foods in the fish stores are safe. So I just recommend caution and going along slowly. Isolate the individuals if you can. And then, so that if it gets worse, you have your home population preserved. But it comes down to the specifics of the situation. And as a rule, don't assume you've got something you can't handle. Just approach it with salt, water changes, better food, swap them over to brine shrimp if you have to, frozen brine shrimp that always gets the appetite back.
Mm-hmm.
And then go from there. And like I say, you can certainly write me and I'll be happy to take a look. People send me pictures of their tanks and pictures of their fish, and I write every day, and I always return my emails usually within 24 hours. I'd be happy to. I always enjoy a problem that's difficult, and I enjoy taking on the challenge as well. So,
And we had another question here too.
Yeah.
Is there a general treatment you would suggest upon receiving new fish, or should you treat only if there are symptoms?
Personally, I only treat when there are symptoms.
Yep, me too.
But there's a lot of benefit to the triage of medications that Corey recommends. I don't know what they are offhand. I just think that a lot of times, more medication is never better than less. Keep them alone for a couple of weeks by themselves in a quarantine tank, and you can generally see if there are any problems. And then I'll go ahead and I'll treat. But there are some live bears I'll get, like the Bacillia villifera, always this way. You start seeing bacterial infections within the first day or the second day in a quarantine tank because they're just not used to the water change quality and they're sensitive to it. So I always put in a medicinal dose of salt with most of my live bears when I first get them. And then I keep them in that for about a week, let them get acclimated and get started, and then I gradually taper off the salt and the water and then put them into their home tank within 2 weeks. And they usually adapt fine. They usually do fine. But yeah, I mean, I would wait till I knew better what I was dealing with before I just throw medication in the tank. Levamisole is a good overall medication, and I use it because you can't always see the things that it kills. If I've got an organism with the live bear disease starting, then levamisole will nip it in the bud. Or camelinus worms that you don't see them coming out of the vents yet, coming out of the orifices, then levamisole will knock it right out. And we can have a discussion down the road about the whole concept of what live bear disease is. I have a number of people that have written me that told me there is no such thing, and we can discuss it more if you'd like. But that's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah, I just use salt when they first come in. Think about it. The salt helps with their slime layer. Their slime layer is their first defense against disease, and it helps with stress. I agree with you. I'm not going to bombard fish with a bunch of medications, especially if they're not showing any issues.
Yeah. And to me, it would seem that after being taken through a regimen of 3 or 4 medications, that when they do finally get introduced to their home tank, when they have to meet their new tank mates, they're in a weakened condition because they're recovering from the medication, and medication takes its toll.
There's a question for the whole panel. Root cause of cyano and best methods to eradicate it when it takes over a tank.
So blue-green algae, basically.
Don't let it.
Yeah, cyanobacteria.
I had it in tanks. I wiped them down really well, so it went away, and then I just cleaned up I made sure I didn't have any substrate that was holding organic matter. I made sure my filters were cleaner. I got rid of it and never came back. I haven't had blue-green algae in probably 5-6 years, but I've had times when it's gotten when I've had it real bad. But it was a case
Ask
where
the question again, Brandon. Go ahead.
What's that?
Oh, Branton wanted to know if we got his question and I missed it. He could ask it again.
It was something about shipping, how you do your shipping.
Oh.
If you have a third party or if you ship it yourself or how you do your shipping.
Ed, you can take that one. You know what? I'm gonna get myself some water to drink. I'll be back in a moment.
All right.
Okay.
Well, Brandon, you know how I use. So for me, I don't use poly bags. I use breather bags just for the good idiots. I ship myself, and for the program that I do, so I require people sign for the fish because I don't like fish sitting outside. And in my area, because you have to pipe sunshine where I am, I use the regular postal service, and I've had good luck with the postal service. So for me, it's not broke. I don't need to fix it. But one of the things I do, the reason I use the breather bags, Gluteates need a lot of oxygen exchange. And I have found I have way more success with breather bags than anything else. And then, like I said, I require people, but I to sign for them because a few years ago, I had someone buy 3 pairs of crocodons from me. And I said, "You're going to be home." "Yep." "Well, she got called into work. Wasn't her fault." Fish sat outside all day in the hot sun in California. When she got home, they were all dead. So that's why I just don't do that. But I ship through the Postal Service. And I've worked with my local office. They know what I have going, and they've actually helped me to better the process for myself. It just works for me. All of my fish get there within a day, but what I have found in certain areas of the country, it's like another day. But the interesting thing is these fish, as long as they're packed properly, can live in those bags for up to 7 to 8 days. That's just what I do. I don't do anything that spectacular. I found with some of the other shipping programs and stuff, I can't have the control that I need. Because for me, I won't ship unless I know that someone's home to pick them up. So that's why I require signatures. And I could be wrong. And if I am, someone tell me. I think a lot of those places don't do that. And I've had disasters with FedEx, so there's no way.
No, FedEx.
Yeah. When you have a box marked live fish, and the person that got your fish said the guy literally threw it over the banister. So,
they delivered a package to me the other day. Walked up on the porch when I was at the door. They walked onto my porch and just dropped it right in front of me.
Yeah.
And turned and walked off. I'm like,
are you complaining about the post office?
Everybody,
no, this is FedEx.
FedEx, UPS, whoever you want to jump on.
Yeah, I use like I said, I understand people have trouble, but I've been shipping for years with the U.S. Postal Service, and I haven't had issues. In all the boxes I've shipped over the last 8 years, I had one box that was a pair that was DOA. I had maybe one DOA this whole year, and of course I'm going to take care of it. And I shipped a lot of boxes this year. There's good and bad in everything. It's just with the protocol and the way I ship, it just works better for me. But don't get me wrong, it took me a few years to develop what I do that works best for me. But you do something similar, Greg.
I agree with you 100%, Ed. I've always shipped USPS overnight, in over 7,000 boxes shipped in 16 years. I've had one that had a big hole in it, and the fish survived in it. Actually, somebody had kicked it. I had one that was left on the bottom of a pallet that's obviously sat on a concrete floor, and it killed the fish froze. And that's it in all those boxes, and my local post office has been great, but some of the local post offices, the people are downright mean. There's no question about it. Mm-hmm. When I started Select Aquatics, you could ship 2 pair of fish for $35 overnight. Today, that same size box, 2 pairs of fish, costs $85 to $95 to ship. Mm-hmm. UPS is $170, FedEx is $235. Now you can ship 3 to 5 day priority, and which for USPS is still going to cost you $50 or $60. The problem was I shipped 3 to 5 day priority, which now takes a week to arrive oftentimes, so that doesn't work. But when I did ship it, somebody found out that they could contact PayPal and say to them, "My fish arrived dead. I had them shipped to me 3 to 5 day priority." They say, yeah, we don't agree that 3 to 5 day priority is appropriate for shipping fish, so they would automatically refund the money without no questions asked. Then I would have to fight PayPal to get my money back. And one guy tried to have me had PayPal pay them for over $100 in hard goods he received. Another guy, I had a bunch of green dragons that he said all arrived dead, and he wanted the money for the fish and the shipping back. It turns out I heard through the grapevine later they all survived. So after I had 4 times that happened to me, and that's when I stopped shipping 3 to 5 day priority.
Yeah, I just don't use PayPal. I just don't use PayPal at all. I have my reasons, and I had a situation, and I had to fight. Someone had stolen and broken into my business account and charged over $5,000. So I just don't use PayPal for anything now. But I remember you telling me about that. So, what it is too is we pay the insurance on the shipping. And I've only had to use it once, and I can honestly say they made it right with the insurance. They said, "Mr. Moats, you have the insurance. We have the proof that," and that was the one time I had an issue. It was a few years ago. And, so people are like, well, why do you charge this and this? if someone's going to buy, let's say if someone places an order for me for over $300 with fish, why would you not buy the insurance in case something happens? So I just put it in with the fee for shipping now so that it's covered. So, and generally what I just tell people, if something does happen, I will refund your money and then I will place the claim with, and I've never had issues. But there are always people out there that are going to try to learn how to milk the system. I had someone try to tell me, you sent me gouramis and they're dead. I'm like, that's not me. And they're showing these pictures. I'm like, I don't have a gourami in my fish room. How did I get? You always have people like that. And that's something you have to be cognizant of. But I've been pretty fortunate with what I've been doing and it works for me. And I mean, I get concerned when people start using these shipping apps that clearly tell you you're not supposed to be shipping live animals through them and they're not marked in the boxes. This is what happens when you're not marking boxes. I'm going to use the Postal Service as a prime example. If you're not marking those boxes and that box starts leaking and it does damage to people's mail, you were held liable for that. And at one time, the Postal Service was thinking about stopping shipping on animals. So not only is it inhumane to the animal, think about what it can do and the damage it can do. So there's a lot of people out there trying to save money on shipping. To me, it's just the way I run my business. If you can't afford to ship, if you aren't going to pay to ship them humanely, I'm not going to ship them at all.
And I'm sorry, Ed, I have to disagree with you on something that you mentioned.
Okay.
I had a situation a few years back where I was shipping overnight, and I had 15 boxes in a row all show up 2-3 days late. Mm-hmm. And so I went to the post office, and like I said, I have a small post office. Everybody knows me, and I said, "Hey guys, you're not making much money off me here. I've gotten the last 15 boxes I've gotten refunds on because they've arrived late." Mm-hmm. So the guy, the postmaster, said, "Let me look into this and find out what's going on, and we'll see if we can get it fixed for you." And I said, "Great." So he gets back to me, and he did some really heavy research and found out that USPS had started contracting out their airline transport stuff to third-party carriers. Mm-hmm. Many of the third-party carriers, because their loads are getting bigger or whatever, and a lot of third-party carriers, and what's on a lot of these planes are foods going to restaurants or foods being shipped across country. When foods are shipped on airplanes, they include a lot of dry ice. Somehow, amongst these carriers, they came to believe that you can't ship live animals in the same carrier hold with dry ice. That's supposed to be animals will suffocate. So every time that I always marked on my boxes very prominently, live fish, yada, yada, yada. And so he says, every time the postmaster said, from now on, we won't even accept your boxes if you have live fish or live animals marked on the box, because that means it's going to get bumped at least a couple of flights and it's going to be a day or two late. And that's just 100% of the time. So even to this day, I can't put live fish on the box.
I can appreciate that, but I've been doing it for 7 years and I've only ever had a few that were ever late. I can appreciate that. I'm certainly not discrediting you.
But for me, you're on the East Coast. It's different. Yeah. It's different distribution centers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The areas I have trouble with would be your area, Utah, and a few others, and it usually comes a day later. But like I said, the way I pack, those fish are really good. But that's the protocol. Yeah, I've heard there's horror stories with it all. But let's be honest, shipping is stressful, not just to the fish, but the people shipping them, because you want to make sure they get there safe and you do whatever you can to get them there. I've seen some interesting things the way people ship.
Every single overnight box I've shipped since mid-fall last year has arrived 1 to 3 days late. Mm-hmm. So, and I get the money back and I send it to the customers. Mm-hmm. So what I do is in the contract that you first agree to when you get your quote from me, it says in there it's going to arrive 1 to 3 days late. It's overnight, but that's just the way it is. Don't get upset when it's not there the next day, because I'm telling you ahead of time, it isn't going to get there, Mm-hmm. And so then people don't expect it, and it's become a lot less stressful for me because, oh my God, I had times where people yelling at me on the phone, yada, yada, yada. And so now it's so consistent, I just say, hey, that's the way it is. But if you go 3 to 5 day priority, it's a week. You want to go UPS, it's going to cost you almost $200. Mm-hmm.
And what gets me is let's be honest. Once they leave our hands, we have no control over them.
That's right.
I've had people say, well, what do you want me to do? Hop a flight and carry your fish to you? That's the only way you're going to know. Anything can happen with them. And I think some people they have way too much of a high expectation.
Yeah. I mean, we ship it very well. I use only breather bags also. And I have very, very, very few losses. Like you say, you have very few losses. So you really kind of got to go out of your way to have losses with boxes that are packed appropriately.
Yeah, exactly. That's the key is packing them appropriately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they can last up to a week oftentimes, and sometimes longer.
Yeah, I agree.
My longest one was 3 weeks. I had a box shipped out. It had 4 plecos and 7 Odessa barbs in it. And I shipped it to Albany, New York. And the address said it was no good or something, it was wrong. So they let it sit in the post office for another week and a half or whatever. And then I got it back about a week later. And so I had a fish friend here. And I was like, should we open the box? And he's like, oh, no, man, you got to open the box. I'm like, no, I don't want to open the box. He goes, oh, go ahead, So we did and found out that all the plecos were alive, very thin, very skinny. And so I gave them to him. I said, you can take these. I'll never be able to sell them because they take a while to get their health back up. And of the Odessa barbs, of the 7 Odessa barbs, 3 of them were dead and 4 of them survived. So that tells you, when they're stressed, they can handle it up to some, fairly decent, more than you expect. I mean, don't plan on that because then they're going to die on you, but they can't last that long.
And we got another question. It's, the trout grenades rarely ever come with an ESU. I'm curious if there are many locations where they can be found contributing to their not endangered status, or do they come from a couple of waterways?
The furcedins I've seen and I've worked, there are furcedins that have geographic locations attached to them. I've never kept one of them. I don't know any. You would have to go through to Tim Habinger at the ALA to find out.
We have breeders with the ALA that have that.
Yeah, they would have that, but the ones I'm working with are hobby line. I don't have a location for anything I've worked with. And they are the one Goodea that isn't endangered.
True.
I believe there's 4 of them that are not endangered. So by ESU, you mean a geographic location or a documentation of some sort? Many do, but it's so prevalent in the hobby that I would say the majority don't. Those I have do not.
And the ones I have here, Brandon, the ones I have don't either, but I'm in the process of getting access to a line that does, and I'm hoping to start focusing on breeding those just because it's a confirmed line. And it's just my personal, what I prefer to work with, and I have access to that. And like Greg was saying, that would be through the American Library Association. There's a program that actually Greg and I are affiliated with that we help people find species of fish that are being bred by the hobbyists within our club. It's called the totally forget what it is right now. Help me out, Greg.
SCAP. And I couldn't tell you what the acronym means, but yeah, SCAP.
Couldn't think for a minute. It's hard getting old. I'm getting to that point, guys. I'll start talking, what I want to say, and then all of a sudden just go blank.
This is the youngest guy in the group by a number of years.
So yeah, our SCAP program is I'm really getting more of appreciation to it the more I'm investing time into it. And what's interesting, there's a lot of people in the program that are willing to help and stuff, and you can find some really cool stuff. And we have a gentleman in the program that is currently has been breeding them for a few years, trout idiots with ESU, and I'm hoping to get some of those in the future and get those out into the hobby. So, but like this gentleman below me said, trout goodyead are not critically endangered fish, so I really wish people would do their research before they tell people they are. All you got to do is go on the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, and it's right there at your fingertips. So that's one of the things that I find is pretty crucial with working with critically endangered fish or fish in general. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and know where you're getting your information and where the sources come from.
Everybody needs to go out and buy a good book, at least one.
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
Yes, sir. And not just to look at the pretty pictures.
Right.
I've got the Library Atlas
That's the Bible for libraries.
because of Greg.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
I bought that book because of Greg. I came across it. I'd seen it in several of Greg's videos, and it's like, I've got to have that book.
That book is the Holy Grail book.
Mhm.
I'm trying to show it. I'm trying to get to it here. It's right. It's sitting right behind me, but I can't get the camera to it. But
I found it in a bookstore for like $3.
Yep.
really,
Thanks for
And I'm like, I've
I
got to have
actually-
that book.
Well, Mike, I'm not going to admit to anything in advance, but if you're missing something when I'm at your house tomorrow,
I actually
You'll
saw
have to know where it is first, Curtis.
That's right. I can't get it on the camera.
I don't leave that book out.
I've
I
seen
don't leave that book out.
I've seen that book offered for $300 in pet stores, and I heard from
Really?
someone who said that they saw it for sale for $3,000.
I bought it in a bookstore about a year and a half ago for like $3 or $4. The bookstore was going out of business, and all their books were on sale.
Wow, you really lucked out.
Earlier in the year, we had a club member that was getting out of the hobby, and he donated all of his books. So we're going through auctioning them off at our monthly club meetings, and we got to that, and it went for over $100 easily. I don't remember what the price was, but it went for over $100. He had an amazing collection of books.
One showed up at an auction I was at, I believe it was in Sacramento, and I told them that what a high priced book it was, and I believe it went for $150. Yeah, so it's really hard to find, but it's becoming less. We discussed it in Sacramento. It's becoming easier to find actually now because all of us are dying,
Passing it on.
and these books are working their way back into the hobby.
one thing I want to say about a lot of people bash on Aquabid because of the archaic website, but books and publications are on there, and there's a lot of really good books on there.
Yes, there is.
A lot of really good books on there.
Well, I'll go even further. It's just my opinion, and it's no attack on anyone in our community. But if you're looking for quality fish from some of the old timers tend to gravitate toward Aquabid.
That's correct. They don't have their name on there. It'll have a different name. But
Right.
like, I know what your name is on there just because I know where you live, and I figured you out. Because it doesn't say Ed Moats on it. It has a different name. But most of us are on there. A lot of
Well, and again, I don't want that to come across as a condescending comment to our community, but I have found, in my opinion, more of the people that really focus in on quality strains tend to gravitate toward Aquabid. And like for me, yeah, it's functional for me. I mean, some of these other websites with all the buzzers and whistles and stuff, they're not having the fish that I look for. I can't tell you the last time I bought a line of fish on Aquabid. I did a couple posts this year, but I really don't do much on auctions or anything anymore because I want to have those conversations with people. So anymore, I'm doing most of my selling through my website so that I can have that conversation with people about, this is what I do. Do you have any questions? And I learned from this gentleman because when I reached out to him 7 years ago, I said, what's the worst thing he can do? Not respond. And now I have a mentor that anytime I have a question, he's right there for me. And I really appreciate that. But that's what I try to do with my business is follow in his footsteps because he really made an impact in what I do. And I want to kind of keep that legacy going. I don't want someone just clicking on just my opinion. I don't want someone just clicking a button and adding it to a cart. I want to be there to help them along the way, because that's how we're going to continue to be successful in this hobby, is by sharing the information.
And keep an eye on what Ed's doing, because I'm working with him on some other things too. So Ed knows what they are, and you'll start seeing some growth in his business here soon as well. So
we keep an eye on Ed all the time, no matter what, because
Someone
Mitchell
has
too.
to.
Mitchell too. Yeah, they're kind of some characters.
too.
You know.
I'm waiting for those flame. Can't think. You just showed them to us. I'm going on 4 hours sleep, guys. So this should tell you something. I had to be at work all day.
Brain fart.
Okay, we can say that. Mitchell, I've been enjoying your channel because you're doing things that I like to do. You like to work with things that people say, oh, you can't breed those, you can't work with those, or this or that. So I've been working with Bolana socks, Brazilians,
That word. Yeah.
Bolana socks. And I've successfully bred them. And I have people say, oh, they only eat live food. Anything I throw in the tank, they'll eat. So I enjoy your channel and seeing what you're doing. And I started working with a lot of different egg scatterers about a year ago, and I just get a kick out of watching what you're doing. So I just wanted to say I appreciate what you're doing there, friend.
Thank you.
He definitely works with some unusual fish.
Yeah. I mean,
I like the variety, like the broad spectrum story, not the variety, but the broad spectrum sort of thing. I focus generally currently on mostly quarries, but I also pick up lots of side projects.
Yep, same here. And then when they successfully spawn and you have fry, it's like a kid at Christmas every time. So
Now, Mitchell, have you had the harpoon Corey?
What is the harpoon Corey?
I can't think of what it is. They call it the harpoon Corey. I can't think of what the
I'm
Latin
awful
name
at
is.
I am awful at common names for things because unfortunately too many things have the same common
Mike
name.
would know.
It's the CW105.
Yeah.
No, I have not done 105. Now I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Gastrodermis.
Yeah, gastrodermis, CW105.
CW105.
Oh, it's sort of like a kind of a small panda.
Kind of, yeah.
ever since they reclassified a lot of the quarries, I'm clueless now.
Oh, I was clueless before, so you can just imagine how clueless I am now.
Looks like an elegance type.
Oh, the CW105 or C105?
CW.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I know. I am aware of that. No, so oddly enough, the what used to be called the Elegans Complex, which was or the Elegans lineage, Corys would use lineage instead of complex, but which is now the some of the gastrodermis. My water is not what they love. It's hard for me to actually breed some of the elegance types Corys, which a lot of people say are the easiest things to breed because it is easy for them in their water. So things like elegans and Napoenensis and the CW C102s, the yellow fin ones, those are hard for me to actually get to trigger. But in other places in the country, super easy for people to trigger them and hard for them to trigger other species of Corys.
That's me.
Water is different.
I have a ton of Napoensis. All I have to do is just do a decent water change,
Yep.
stimulate the rain, and eggs are literally going all over the tank. But some of the other quarries that are supposed to be really easy to breed, nothing.
Exactly. Yep.
That's what, and it is true what we all say. Depends on your water. It's easier to work with fish that are going to adjust well to your to your water, and the less manipulation you have to do with your water, the better off they're going to be.
Mhm.
I often say that the fish know what you're doing to their water, and you don't fool them. You might get the water to where they can live in it, but I don't think it's the same for the fish, personally.
Yeah, I agree.
Here's a question. A fish room with limited water change abilities would benefit from multiple bog systems, aquaponic systems, to drive down nutrient overload. True or false? Opinions.
Does anyone know about the products that were coming out of Germany about 10 years ago that were a chemical mix that you could add to your aquariums that supposedly made it so you didn't need to do water changes?
Mm-mm.
No.
This was a big deal in Germany a few years ago, and we were waiting for it to come to the U.S., and I haven't seen anything more on it. So, because back in Europe, the water is very precious. It's very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so they had to work out ways to where aquariums could keep quality fish without doing water changes. And I guess it's a really complex chemical, thing, but supposedly it's available that you can purchase it, but I haven't heard anything more about it since I first heard about it.
It's the first I've heard of it.
Yeah, that's not, to my understanding, it doesn't exist in the U.S. So
that would be interesting. I'm the boring old school. I believe in water changes. It's what works for me.
oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, it's just, and the reason why I can understand, appreciate, everyone has their own opinion, and if that works for you, that's great.
Right.
With what I'm doing here, Greg, you've seen I have tanks with a great number of fish in. I have to turn that water around a couple times a week. That's a small contained space, and it doesn't take much for nitrates and ammonias to build up. And I'm just old school that way in removing the water. I think a lot of it would be based on how many fish are in your system. There's a lot of factors. The key, so when people are doing these natural aquariums or planted tanks, the key is, if you're not using filtration, is that you do a low number of fish. If you're doing a high bio load, then you have to do that. So with what I'm doing here, I have to do water changes. So I'm trying my best, because I'm finally caving in, Greg. I'm going to be automating my fish room.
Woo!
I found it very cathartic to do my water changes manually, and trying to get as much done with them as I went in a week. I try to do at least 25 to 50% water changes a week, and it's just getting harder to do. So I'm going to be doing that, but I'm old school when it comes to water changes. For me, that's something that's always worked.
Automatic water changes, you have to, but yeah, no, when you get to where we are, I could never do what I do without that water change system.
It's starting to get rough for me between work and then coming home. And the way I'm working now, I'm working 10 and 12-hour days. So by the time I get home, I just don't have the energy to manually do water changes. Although I love to do it, it relaxes me. But I have to think of what's best for the fish. So yeah, I'm completely automating my fish room.
There's a couple ways to do it, and we can talk more.
Sure.
One way I'm thinking of is very simple. It's much simpler than what I'm doing. It's just as effective. You just have to be there. The other way is automatic. That's a lot more complex, but it can happen when you're not in the fish room.
Sure.
So
You got to have benches get set up. It's
Yeah, I change about 10% of water on everything every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So even when I go to, when I was at the Clash, I was still doing water changes too.
Oh, do you have an app that activates it?
Oh no, it's all scheduled.
It just automatically.
But I do have an app that I can see it, and when you do those sorts of things, you need to also build in fail safes and things like you need back. So what I do for automated water changes is you get these sprinkler system solenoids that you can turn on and off with electricity, so you can open and close the water. And you do that in wherever you need it. But I also have a master one that happens before all of those, so I can entirely shut the entire system down if I ever need to.
Well, also, if you get a servo that breaks, it has to go through that master, I have the same thing. Yeah, I learned the hard way on that one to put that master in.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then there's other, you want to also know if you ever overrun something. So you get those water sensors that like sit on the floor. And if you ever actually have something that does overrun, then you can get an alarm. But if you actually do an automation system, you can actually have that thing detect water on the floor and shut off that master valve for you.
Right.
So there's things that you want to do if you're it all my statement on automation is it all depends on what you are comfortable with. Don't do things that you won't be comfortable with. If you're going to set something up and then you're afraid of it when you leave for a weekend or something like that, don't get yourself into that situation. You've went too far and you've lost your comfort value. And the whole real point of automation is to remove stress and things that you used to have to do. So don't build in new stresses if you're not comfortable with it.
My whole automatic system was put in around 2002, and it's too old now. I don't trust it when I'm not there.
Yeah.
But when it has to be done, which I do every day, I just push a couple buttons and I'm just there when it happens. But I no longer would have my automatic system do anything when I'm not there.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. That's like build it in so like you don't make your system actually stress you out.
Yeah. It's like trying to take an old car on long trips. Not a good idea always. Yeah.
Well, that's
that first time it actually has any problem, you've lost all trust in it, and you don't want to have that problem with your fish room.
Well, that's the reason why for so many years I did everything manually, because I'll be the first one to own it. I'm a control freak. But it's getting to a point with everything going on in my life, it's harder to keep and maintain everything. And what I find is I'm getting more stressed and I'm not enjoying my hobby as much as I used to. And I've worked too hard with what I have here. So I finally just said, I have to cave in and do it. And just from what I'm producing now and the numbers I'm producing, it's just going to be so much easier.
Yeah. I've also seen people talk about, there are people that I think also have a not necessarily the right mindset for an automation system. I've seen people actually think that when they do an automated water system, that it means that they actually don't have to spend as much time dealing with tanks and things like that. Mm-hmm. That's not the point of it, is to remove stress. It's so like you can do a water change and not be afraid that you're going to overflow a tank in the background kind of thing. You still need to spend time looking at the fish.
Absolutely.
Paying attention to everything that's going on in there. If you actually put in an automated water system and it removes your need to like be there at the fish, you've actually made it so that like things can run away from you and you not realize that there's a problem with the fish themselves, which you previously were doing because you were manually doing water changes and you were at the tanks looking at it. So I see why some people think that an automated water system will make them less engaged, but my argument is that it actually gives you more time to be more engaged because it removes that extra stress that you were having of making sure you actually don't overflow a tank in the background while you're looking at this tank kind of thing.
Right.
Well, and Ed and I probably are very similar in this. If I'm going to put in an automatic water change system or any kind of an automatic system, I have to understand it thoroughly before I'm going to use it. So if there is a problem, I know immediately what to do and how to fix it, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of people will buy these systems and put them in, like you said, Mitchell, because they think it's going to take the work away, and they don't understand what they've got going on. Then when they have a problem, they're doubly screwed because they didn't cause the problem in the first place, and they don't know how to fix it. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean,
Well, see, another reason why I've always done manual is because just from what Mitchell said, to me, it's just my opinion. When I had hands in the tank, I'm observing my fish. And that's where, but I've gotten to a point where I've realized I can still observe my fish and don't have to be doing all this manual labor because none of us are getting younger and it's getting to be a little too, I can still handle it, but I'm not as spry doing it as I was 5 years ago. So it's like, instead of working hard, I need to work smart. And now with YouTube and stuff, so be trying to balance YouTube, my business, and still work. Yeah, I still work. I still work a full-time job. It's trying to find the better things so that I can still enjoy my hobby and grow my business, but yet still the health and maintenance of my fish is a priority. So yeah, Greg knows this is a big deal for me because he's like, why aren't you automating when he was here? And I preferred to do it manually, but I have to do something now. What's going to be more beneficial for the fish, and
there's one
it's gonna be
system
the
I'm
right
thinking of that you're still doing it manually, you're still doing work, but you're not lifting any buckets, and all the hoses and the stuff is doing the work for you.
Gotcha.
You turn a couple of valves, and then when it's done, you turn them off.
Yep.
Well, there's
another question.
There's another slight version to that, Greg, of some people will actually still be engaged. They will turn a timer on, like almost an old school manual version of a timer, that they'll actually be there, physically turn the timer on, and it will only run the water change for like half an hour kind of thing. So they don't have to remember to come back and turn the valve off.
Right.
Slight modification to what you're talking about. But yeah, still someone it's very common to have someone just have a comfort level where you are the one that actually initiates the system turning a valve on.
Well, what the system I'm thinking of, you have one line that comes from the sink, goes out in front of all your tanks. You have one line that goes into all the tanks, and every line has a valve on it. So you open the valves up. If you fill the tanks from the sink, then the tanks fill up, and you've established a siphon on all the PVC. Turn the valves off, water stays in the PVC. Then the next time you need a water change, you just run it to the sink, turn the valves, it drains down automatically, and then you refill it again. So, but when you're refilling it, you have to watch the tanks to make sure the tanks don't overfill. So you just run along and turn the valves. And then when you're done, you can take the whole thing off and stick it in the closet. And that's the simplest way to go.
Yeah, I will say, like, I know that, Greg, you're down with your siphons, but if you're at all comfortable with it, drilling your tank is work, but drilling it makes it so much easier.
Well, what do you do when you need to move a tank quickly, or what do you do when you start getting cracks in the glass around the bulkheads?
Well, first, why are you getting cracks around the glass in the bulkhead? And second, you don't hard plumb everything. You don't glue everything together on your drains. Mm-hmm. So on your drain, if you actually say like a 3/4 inch PVC pipe will fit into a 1 inch PVC pipe. So if you come out with a hose, like a vinyl hose from your tank, that will easily fit into a 1 inch or a 3/4 inch pipe. So you can easily take the tank up and you just pull it off of the drain system and put it wherever you need it.
Mm-hmm. But it's a case of where people have asked me, would I do it differently if I know what I know now? Possibly, but I did break a few tanks trying to drill bulkheads when I first started, and I said I'm going to go with where it's totally portable, where I could just take siphons off.
Yeah, I get it.
Oh, NC Pleco Cavers had a question here for Craig. It was,
hey NC, hi buddy.
Are you stopping production on Green Dragons? I heard many times, but who will be taking over? And I am in need of G'dayans soon.
Well, you can tell Nathy, I've written him. I don't have the Green Dragons any longer, but I have a guy on the East Coast that I'm working with. We're doing our best to get his numbers up so that hopefully he'll have fish by next spring. And then with respect to the Gadids, they're in good supply. We've talked about it, and just send me an order what you'd like, and I'll send you back a quote. So not much more to that.
I'm going to interject for a moment, if that's okay, Greg. But
Yeah.
one of the things, too, with the Green Dragons is I highly recommend that everyone watch his video on the update for the Green Dragon and what he looks for in the quality of the Green Dragon. Because if we want to honor this gentleman below me, we have to maintain his bloodline over the years he's worked for it, not just producing a fish, but reproducing the way he's wanted the Green Dragon, the direction to go. So if we're not calling for what represents that Green Dragon, we're not honoring his work, and that's just the way I see it. So making sure you understand what exactly is a Green Dragon. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think that's a big thing to remember, and that goes for anyone that has a bloodline of fish that they've been working with for years. The best way we can honor them is to keep their bloodline the way it was intended, and that's done by understanding what to look for and call. And respectfully, I see a lot of people don't do that. So, especially with the Green Dragon. That's a special line, and yeah, it's just understanding. And I really recommend everyone watch his videos. There aren't too many people that would dedicate so much time and effort to working with a strain of fish. And when you watch and see what he's doing, it'll give you a really good perspective on exactly what it takes and the time and effort it takes to develop these lines.
It's a fish by fish thing, man. You've got to look at fish by fish. Now that particular gentleman, I know him, and I had sent him some pairs of short fin Green Dragons. Oh my goodness, over a year ago, I believe. So I don't know how he's doing with them, but exactly what you said applies to what he's doing with them now.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully the ones he does have are doing well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I see a little conversation going on in the chat about, if you can't do, I want to say we're like psychos because we have all these tanks and we do all these water changes. If you cannot do that, but you still want a fish room, how do you do that? That's the kind of vibe I got out of the chat.
Water changes are essential. I think Ed would agree with that. So would Mitchell.
Fish growth, yeah, you have to. If you're putting in a lot of food, there's a lot of organic. You have to take that time. In my opinion, before I did my fish room, I understood exactly what it is to work. I'm certainly not trying to chase people out of the hobby or try to change their mind. But here's what it is, folks, and I'm sure these gentlemen will agree with me. It's a full-time job. If you don't love it, don't do it. It's hard work. And you have to love what you're doing to do this. Because Greg and I have talked about this numerous times. A lot of people get into this for the wrong reasons. And they're in for a couple years and then they're out. You have to love this hobby. You have to love what you do. For a lack of it's going to sound like I'm being really off the wall. You have to eat, sleep, and live your fish room. And if you're not willing to do that, well, you can get a couple of tanks, but like those of us that have a lot of tanks, we choose to do that because we love it. And everyone says, oh, you're living our dream. To some people, that could be a nightmare because when they realize what it takes to operate these fish rooms, it's a lot of work. It's a labor of love. And a lot of people get burnt out early. So what I tell people is find people that you can ask honest questions about. So, it is. I mean, yeah, there have been times I've been, what am I doing? But then I sit back and remember, this is my passion, and it's my outlet to share my knowledge and share share these fish with people in the hobby. So it's a lot of hard work. So a lot of people think, and I'm sure you gentlemen will agree with me, oh, I can get into this and make lots of money.
No,
Very few people
no.
that get that successful. You have to do it for the love of it. And what I do is find something that you'll enjoy and work with that. So
Well,
that's kind of my take on it.
and be smart about it. You have to have some discipline. You can't keep everything that everybody gives you. You can't keep everything you want. A lot of times things just aren't going to live in your tap water. There's no question.
That's true.
I get more pleasure out of focusing on one or two species than I do on keeping all of the species in a genus. You know, it's that's why today I'm down to like 8 species from having 30 for many years. I kept up at 30 because that's what the hobby needed and that's where the money was. But today I'm working on quality and producing good quality product, and the 8 species I've got is more than enough work.
I say when I first started watching you, Greg, you had like 30 species and over 100 tanks, and
120 tanks and 30 species. Yeah, I kept that going for about 15 years. I'm sorry, 13 years, and then I started cutting back.
My point of that is, don't get discouraged. Set up what you can handle, and what you can maintain, and do it very well. But set it up for what you can handle. If you got 20 tanks and you can only handle 5, handle 5. We don't care.
Yep. Exactly.
Handle
There
them
are levels. There are levels. Like,
and only expand as you're comfortable. Yeah,
handle them very well and be good at it.
I didn't start off with 30 species and 120 tanks. I've had aquariums. I had 10 tanks when I was in California before I moved out here in 2000, and it just gradually built. And when I started the business, I didn't add fish. I didn't add tanks until I made the money to pay for them. So the business grew as customer base grew. And there's a couple of people in this business that spent a ton of money and built a big business, and they're selling stuff, and people are complaining because the quality isn't there. And it's like, you got to get the quality there first and get pride in your fish first. Then you can start selling them to others. But that's just where I come from.
My wife always asks me, she's like, you're 60 years old. In 5 years, what do you see? And it was like, I may not have all of these tanks, but I might have 2 125s that are just spectacular.
Right.
And I have a love seat and I have a big screen TV on the wall, and that's my fish hobby. I'm going to make it what I want it to be, because I'm not going to make any money. I know I'm not making the money.
Right.
But make it what you can enjoy. Do it for yourself.
Yep.
Don't be a weirdo like us trying to breed everything.
I think most of us have kept everything at one time or another, but you just don't do it all at once.
Yeah.
I agree. So it was funny. My nephew was over one day, and he looked around. He goes, "This is like," he said, "You're only doing so many." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, there are a lot more, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You could collect them like Pokemon." And I thought, well, buddy, that's not the deal. The deal is just like Greg said, find ones that you can really focus on and breed quality. So like one of the things, a lot of people go out buy all kinds of fish all the time. They have one tank of them. And you're working with this fish. What happens? Anything can happen. I have lost a whole tank of fish. I'm sure all of these gentlemen have had the same thing. So if you're working with a fish, you have to have a number of tanks for them. And that's what I started doing a few years ago. And now I have about at minimum 6 tanks, 6 to 8 tanks of each species I'm working with. But focus on one that you enjoy, not what you think you can get this for, what you really enjoy and what you enjoy about that fish and what you feel you can do to improve that fish, because that will come across more authentically to our community than someone just doing a quick sale. And I think that's what more people need to understand. Find a fish that you like, and it could be whatever fish it is.
Yeah.
Find a fish you're passionate about and what you can do to improve the quality of it, whether it's vitality, size and strength of it, or just maintaining a healthy, viable bloodline of the fish. And I think that's what makes the difference.
Yeah, I agree.
Out of curiosity, Ed, how many tanks are you running these days?
I fluctuate. So right now I've got about 90, but I can set up for 110.
Yeah, I would tap out at manual at maybe 20 tanks. Like
Mm-hmm.
if it went past 20, I don't think I could do manual on
Like I said, friend, it's getting to me.
Yep.
I had help here at the with it, so there were two of us doing it. But lately, I've been doing most of it. They need a little bit of a break, and I totally understand it. And I'm doing it. I'm getting it. I'm getting it done, but not as efficiently as I would like. And I had to sit back and think what I've been working on for the last few years. Do I downsize or do I find a better mechanism? And so that's why I just decided I'm going to be automating, especially because one of the things I'm working with, I haven't talked to too many people about it, but I'm really focusing in on the crocodons. In my opinion, those are the family of fish that I really wanted to work with. So I'm expanding that out. And for the work I've done on them the last few years, I don't want to really give that up. So this is the last hurrah, so to speak, to keep them going. So I just think automation will be a lot better for me.
Yeah. I would jump right in on that project with you, Ed.
Yeah. What's happening? El Tabasso, the Black Prince, there are not too many people working with that line right now. It's becoming more and more difficult to find. And it's one of my favorites. But so right now I'm working with Laterellas. I'm working with Audax El Tabasso and Audax Los Pinos. And my Los Pino is just taking off like wildfire. And I'm really working with developing the structure of the bodies. And over time, they're really getting really big. Those are the ones I prefer to work with. And right now I've got probably 25 different tanks of crocodons that I'm working with. And it's something that I really enjoy. So that's why I'm just going to be automating, because it just makes a lot more sense and it's going to be a lot less stressful for me.
I think if we get some more of these fish out, if you see a male and a female black prince, crocodon audax in a tank, that's fun. That's like a baby pair of cichlids right there.
That's what I tell people. They're like dwarf cichlids. They have the same behavioral characteristics. So
and I can get up in like say a 20 long. I can get up to about, I'm going to say about a dozen. And then Super Dad, the big male black prince, decides that he doesn't like the other male black princes. So then you got to get involved because he's going to take them out just like a cichlid.
Yep.
And it's just fun. It's just like, let's look at their attitudes today.
Yeah.
You know,
well, I lucked out a year and a half ago with the ALA. I had been looking for Los Pinos for a while, and Tim had reached out to me through Facebook. He said, I hear you're looking for this. I'm like, yeah. He said, I know where I can get them. And then Tim and I got to be really good friends. And now I work with him and Greg on the SCAP program. And what I like about the SCAP program, in my opinion, it's the most readily available program currently that keeps as best an accurate list of what's available as possible. Because all of these organizations are doing their best, but an organization can only be as successful as its participants. And when you have participants that are not submitting their information, ALA seems to be getting a lot more participation with that. And because of being a part of the ALA, I was able to get Los Pinos, and I had looked for quite a few years for them. And so it's just who you connect with and things like that. And then I saw a niche for this, and I've just been working with them. So I've lost track of how many drops this year I've had so far. I'm on third generation. I'm on from when I started getting them a year and a half ago. But that's where organizations fall into place. But the Audax are my favorite. The Audax are my favorite, and just the crocodons in general. And it's like you said, Curtis, it's because of their behavior. They're like a dwarf cichlid. So people are like, oh, you do live bearers. until you've observed cracodons in a tank where they're well adjusted, they're just like dwarf cichlids.
What's your pH and hardness, Ed?
My pH is at like a 7.8, and my TDS will fluctuate between 275 and 300.
Yeah, that's really ideal for them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I said they're just like the only line I'm having a little bit of trouble with for this year was El Tabasso, and so many people wanted it. They're just not producing for me right now, so I'm working with them. But I found that happened with me with Lateralis a few years ago, and then this year I probably had over 400 Lateralis produced in the fish room this year. It's just working them, developing them, strengthening them up, removing any type of weaknesses or defects. And that's why I tell people, when you get new fish, separate them from your other fish that are the similar species until you can be assured what you're putting into your line. And that it takes time. And I'm starting to see improvement in El Tabasso, but it's what I enjoy doing. I like figuring out what can we do, not to enhance, but to improve their health and vitality. So that's kind of what I'm doing with the cracodons. Because I think a lot of people are just producing these, in my opinion, are just producing these fish, but they're not feeding them. We've talked about this before. They're not feeding them the proper diets, which is one of the number one issues with Goodyears. And they're not culling properly, which over time can diminish the line. So yeah, the automation just seems going to be working for me, because I'll be honest with you guys, doing it manually right now, it's a lot of work, and I totally agree with Mitchell. I mean, you should, doing manual 20, 25, what you can handle. What it was at the time, I was enjoying it. So I'll admit when I make a mistake. And one of the things I should have done is just automate it right from the get-go. So now I'm kind of looking forward to just getting that started, because I feel by doing that, it's going to definitely keep my water quality up. And we all know what that can do to better the fish's health.
Yes, sir. I got a weird question for you guys, because I've done this, which of course coming from me, it's weird. If I have a fish, that's in a 20 tall, 29, whatever, and I'm just not getting any production, nothing's going on, I've taken like a 20-gallon tub, black tub, thrown a whole bunch of moss in it, and put those fish in there, and put it over in the corner. And I go by and feed it. I change the water, but they're not getting that me walking in the room every day messing with them, because they're in that tub. And I've had some pretty good success with it.
There's something to be said for that, man.
Yep.
Many times I've left on a vacation to come back to find fry everywhere when they hadn't seen me in a week, or 3 or 4 days, whatever. Maybe somebody else has come in and fed lightly once a day. But yeah, no, I think there's something to be said for leaving the fish alone sometimes.
So
I agree.
I have this thing that I call strategic neglect, which is what that is. It's like, I'll set something up. I know it's about right for them, and I'll just let them do their thing while I'm doing other stuff. And eventually I'll come back, and half the time they've already spawned or something like that. So strategic neglect is what I call that.
I'm going to steal that. I like that term.
I was just wondering if I'm the only one that does stuff.
Oh,
like
no.
that.
Well, there are some fish that are easily stressed, and with like one of the things I have had people say, I've been trying to breed these Goodyears, and I'm like, where do you keep them? Oh, they're in our living room. Do you spend a lot of time with active family in the room? Yeah, well, that could be part of the problem. People need to realize fish can see outside a glass and see, and if there's a lot of activity in their area, it can cause stress if you have a lot of fast movements and things. So it makes perfect sense what you're doing with the tubs, because what it is, it's almost like how you feel when you wrap a blanket around you. You feel comfortable when you're comfortable and you're relaxed. That's when it's going to happen. If you're under stress all the time, they're not going to do anything. I had that with my Panchax Saccharemii. They were in the perfect tank for a year.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Nothing.
I moved them to a tank higher up, so it's slightly warmer. The backgrounds, the sides and the back are totally blacked out. Just the front is open. They're already starting to show spawning, and I just moved them a few days ago.
Mhm.
That's the only thing that's changed, and I think it's just because they feel more secure.
Yeah.
And I could definitely see that.
Well, for those of us who have multiple tank rooms, I do something that you might not do. And for anybody who has multiple tanks, it might help them. But I keep track of where each of my species spawns. And then over a period of 2 or 3 years, I came to find that there are certain species that won't spawn in certain tanks because they don't like being near the ceiling. They don't like being near the floor. They don't like.
Sure.
So I came to time. I mean, I've been doing it 16 years. So now I know, the Xenotogas only breed over here. The Montezumas used to only breed in these tanks. And I found out that everybody now is where they are because they have shown me over time that this is where they do best. And it's up to you to observe the fish and see where you put them. But not every fish is going to do well in every tank in any location.
True.
Right.
Some like being near a window, some don't.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's subtle, but just keep track of it, and then eventually you'll find out. Oh, fish don't even live in this tank, but they breed like crazy in this tank over here, and you're all in the same water.
Yeah.
But
I want to say, Mitchell, you had a tank that you had covered. When Alex was at your fish room, you had a tank of tetras or something that were covered.
So,
for the tetra eggs.
yeah, so there are, I don't know specifically all the different species, but there are some tetras that their eggs are light sensitive. So what you do is you actually entirely wrap the tank so it will only let in like a very minor amount of filtered light. So basically what I did is like brown packing paper. So there's a little bit of light could come into the sides, but not much. And have the adults spawn in there. And then when they're done, you pull them out and you leave the eggs, because if some of them are exposed to light, then they actually will go bad. I don't know that there's not all of the species will do that. Some of them will, but like there are things that you need to do sometimes. So these bitterlings that I have, I've actually intentionally for a while had plastic around their tank to make sure that they were not messed with by things in the next tank over, because I intentionally nowadays I don't paint all the sides to my tanks. I do that intentionally because sometimes I want something to be able to see fish in the next tank over, because there are some things that are triggered to have like apistos. And in the case of apistos, a pair bond will form and will be stronger if they're actually needing to defend themselves from some other fish. And one of the easy ways to do that without anybody hurting each other is to put them in a tank beside another tank and let them see the fish in the other tank. So nobody will hurt each other, but they'll defend themselves from the other ones in the tank next to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I want them to be able to see through the sides. But a lot of times I also don't want them to see each other. So I'll put blockers between the tanks. So yeah, a lot of my tanks are intentionally like the sides are covered so they won't see through to other tanks to help decrease stress from other kinds of fish being around them. It just depends on what the fish is. So that's why nowadays I don't actually paint the sides, because I want that flexibility of making it so I can use that tank so they can see to the next tank over, or not by just blocking it off.
I do that with my cracodons. Like Curtis is saying, as the cracodons get older, your dominant male tends to run the tank. And what I have found, a lot of people put one male in the tank. And sometimes because there's no competition with males, that male just says, oh, I've got a couple females, whatever. By putting them side by side, and the males being able to see each other, that encourages competition for them, encourages them to spawn with the females, but the males don't have contact with each other. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm doing so well with cracodons, because I've seen people, I have a trio and they're not producing. Sometimes those males, if there has to be that competition to drive them sometimes to breed. And I found that's the best way I do it. So most of my cracodons are in my island tanks, and I have them side by side. And I just do it that way because they're seeing the other males, but they don't get access to them. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm breeding them so successfully.
Because you know what will happen if you let them get access to each other.
So hey, real quick story. When I first got El Tabasso, I brought 6 of them in. Within 2 days, the female killed all the others. And I'm like, do I get this again? And I waited a couple months, and then I did, and then I was able to hold the line. But that female, she finally made up for it. Normally they have about 10 babies. She had about 18 her first drop.
Wow.
So which that's very rare.
Yeah.
But she was the killer. So, but they're just like dwarf cichlids. So I do similar to that, because that's the thing, and that's another reason why it's good to have a couple different tanks of something, because it's not just, sometimes a lot of these species, it's not just putting a male and a female in the tank. You have to have things that are going to trigger. And I found, in my opinion, with the cracodons, having other males within the proximity that they can see will sometimes encourage that, because it encourages competition for who's going to be the big bad male. And that works for me. So yeah, it makes perfect sense to do that.
Right. Well, guys, we've gone about 2 hours. You want to continue, or you want to go ahead and end her here?
Well, I wouldn't mind having dinner.
Okay. Well, with that, we'll call her good there.
I think this is a great group. Would you like to do this again?
I was just going to say the same
Yes,
thing. I'm loving this. I'm loving every minute of it.
Definitely.
Sure.
Greg, I want to thank you for coming on. Ed, Mitchell, always a pleasure to have you guys on. Greg, if you want to do this again, we'll definitely do it again whenever you're available, whenever everybody's available.
Sure.
And
we'll talk and pull something together, and we'll try to get the time right next time.
I'll send you a text message about 7 o'clock my time, 6 o'clock your time.
Right. And with that, we will see everybody in the next one.
Have a good night, folks.
All right. See you.